If you're watching this video, you've probably heard of Angry Birds. It absolutely dominated the App Store in the early 2010s with its long list of spin-offs and got a movie in 2016. After that, they just stopped making new Angry Birds content. Yep. It's been a dead franchise for 8 years now. Nothing new. No new games at all. No presence on social media. Luckily, we're not here to talk about the current state of Angry Birds, mainly because if I think about it any more than I already do I might actually snap. Today, we're talking about the iconic Angry Birds plushies that were made by Commonwealth up until 2016. You've probably seen at least one of these things before, most likely one of the original 6 plushies that were released in late 2010. However, you may not have known that Commonwealth made hundreds of Angry Birds plushies over the 6 years they worked with Rovio. Some were produced in large numbers, others in small numbers, but a shocking amount of these plushies never even hit store shelves. Today, I'm gonna focus on the more obscure plushies as they're very fascinating to talk about. Let's begin. Before we begin, I'd first like to give a huge shout out to Maximus Overdrive. A lot of the info in this video is gathered from videos he's made about these plushies, which are a lot more in-depth and generally better than the video you're watching right now. He's also worked with Commonwealth staff directly, and I honestly don't think this video would exist without his channel. If you find any of this video remotely interesting whatsoever, I strongly recommend him. Anyways, let's begin at the location where a number of these rare plushies were unveiled, Toy Fair 2014 in New York. At this point in time, both Angry Birds Star Wars games had been released and both waves of plushies for the first AB Star Wars had hit shelves. The games and the plushies were both doing well financially, so many people were anticipating plushies of the second game, and at Toy Fair 2014, that's what they got. As you can see, there are a lot more plushies in this wave than any other wave released so far, likely due to the large number of characters introduced in Star Wars 2 in comparison with most other Angry Birds games. When these Toy Fair images eventually surfaced to the public after a few months, people waited eagerly for their release. But, after a year of waiting without any hope, it became apparent this set had been cancelled. To this day, we don't know the reason for its cancellation. Over the years, a few eBay listings have surfaced of some of these plushies, but a more complete, albeit expensive, option became available when Maximus, who I mentioned earlier, listed a majority of the Star Wars 2 plushies on eBay as part of his Commonwealth collection. For the sake of not sounding repetitive later on, this also happened with a lot of the other plushies I'll be mentioning. I'll come back to Star Wars later, as there are more unreleased plushies separate to this set. First, I want to mention another wave of plushies, as Star Wars 2 wasn't the only line on display at Toy Fair 2014. There was another line on display just a few meters away which went under the radar for years. Meanwhile, at Toy Fair 2014, not too far away from the Star Wars 2 plushies, a new product was on display which people also seem to be taking an interest in. The Wiki Bear. You're probably wondering why this is relevant. It's all thanks to this video from Toy Fair showcasing the Wiki Bear. If you pay attention, for a few seconds the camera moves sideways to reveal the infamous Go plushies. Despite this video not having any privacy restrictions, it went under the radar for 7 years until Twitter user Nikki Freddard pointed its existence out in a reply back in February 2021. Funnily enough, his reply also went unnoticed until May of that year, but when word got out about these plushies, an in-depth search had begun. Considering how hard it is to see the plushies shown off in the Wiki Bear video in good detail, it was both a great relief but a punch in the gut at the same time considering how long it went unnoticed. When another video was discovered from one of Commonwealth's official channels showcasing these plushies in full detail. The video showed off both 5-inch and 8-inch variations of Red, Chuck, Bomb, Corporal Pig and Foreman Pig in their Angry Birds Go attire, as well as an 8-inch Terrence plush without any 5-inch variation. One thing that was absent from this video, however, was the King Pig plush that could faintly be seen in the Wiki Bear video, as well as the special cardboard carts it appears the 5-inch plushies would have been sold in. For almost 2 years, this was the only info we had on the Angry Birds Go plush. Until Maximus started up his aforementioned Commonwealth collection and gave us not only a better glimpse into the plushies we already knew existed, but a look at a Bubbles plushie which looked a lot more like a prototype than the other plushies, likely explaining its absence from the 2 videos. Another thing that got revealed alongside this Bubbles plushie were development samples of Red, Chuck, Terrence, Corporal Pig and Foreman Pig. The Red sample had actually been seen before via an eBay listing from a while back, but this reveal gave us a better look at it. There also seems to have been a bomb sample, too, but there's much less documentation on this plushie than the others. Despite all these discoveries, the cardboard carts for the 5-inch plushies that I mentioned earlier seem to still be lost to time. Hopefully they can be recovered someday. Angry Birds Space also received a lot of plushies that never made it to stores. First up, we have Frozen Pig and Fat Pig. To my knowledge, these characters were also made into plushies by other companies, but Commonwealth's own renditions of them sadly never got sold. It's a shame they never got released, as they both look very detailed and ready to be manufactured. Not much else is known about these plushies. However, they aren't the only unreleased plushies relating to Angry Birds Space. During Black Friday last year, Maximus uploaded a video where he unboxed 10 never-before-seen prototypes for the Commonwealth collection, and 5 of them were space plushies. Starting off, we have a prototype of not only Frozen Pig, but Frozen Corporal, Foreman and King Pig. As you can tell by the fact that these are just the original pigs' designs with blue fabric, these are very early samples. Frozen Corporal Pig still has some of the green embroidery on the outline for his right eye. Putting the Frozen Pig I mentioned earlier and the 4 samples side by side, you can tell that Corporal, Foreman and King Pig would have had a lot more detail put onto their faces, such as the icicles. If a somewhat finished Frozen Pig plush has been found, maybe we'll discover finished versions of the other 3 in future? Nonetheless, the Frozen Pigs aren't the only samples we have here. Maximus also showed off a plushie of Space Eagle in his video too. The plushie looks like its design has been finalized, the only irregularity being that the plushie is 12 inches tall, a lot smaller than the original Mighty Eagle plush. Maybe this is the size in which the plushie was actually going to be sold, or maybe it was just for the sake of the sample and another version would have been made reminiscent of the original Mighty Eagle plushie size. Sadly, we'll probably never know the answer to this question, like a lot of other questions regarding the cancelled plushies brought up in this video. You remember how I mentioned the second wave of plushies that were released for the first Angry Birds Star Wars earlier? Well, the set was released with 4 plushies, those plushies being Pilot Red, Yoda Bird, Obi-Wan Kenobi and C-3PO Yoke. However, there was originally meant to be 5, and to learn more about the 5th plush, we need to go back to Toy Fair 2013. Just like the Angry Birds Star Wars 2 wave that would be on display just a year later, people were highly anticipating this second wave of plushies. On display at Toy Fair were 6 plushies, those being the 4 I just mentioned. A Terabaka plushie which had already been released in the first wave but was at Toy Fair most likely for popularity reasons, and a plushie of R2 Egg 2. Months later, the second wave would hit shelves, but for some reason, R2 Egg 2 was missing. We don't know the reason for its cancellation, but we know the current location of the plushie shown off at Toy Fair, or at least one of the samples. In a YouTube video from 2020 titled, My Angry Birds Plush Collection, by Planet ICO, the plush can be seen towards the end of the video. According to Planet ICO, he found it in his dad's storage. The unreleased plushies don't stop there, however. There was originally meant to be a whole 3rd wave of plushies based on the first AB Star Wars, and from what we can gather, it would have been the most unusual line released by Commonwealth yet. This wave wasn't unearthed until July 2022, when Maximus first tried reaching out to some of the people at Commonwealth for info about some merchandise. This line would have included some of the vehicles shown off in AB Star Wars 1, as well as a few miscellaneous characters. In full, the set would have had the Mighty Falcon, the Star Destroyer, an X-Wing, a Minion Pig TIE Fighter, a Lord Vader TIE Fighter, an AT-AT, an AT-ST, a Death Star, Lando, Greedo and Slave Princess Stella. Quite the unusual lineup, huh? Anyways, as you could tell, this wave never released, due to plushies such as Princess Stella being controversial, and that it was quite obvious to Commonwealth that the only plushies that would sell high numbers here were Lando and Greedo. Which is probably why they can be seen within the Star Wars 2 wave as well. Still a very unique wave to discuss, however. This segment is gonna combine a number of waves and samples Commonwealth produced, starting with the Bird Day Party set. This set was released sometime around 2012, being one of the first waves to feature Stella as a character, as well as Red, Bomb and a Minion Pig all equipped with birthday attire. The set is infamous for being one of the most obscure lines of AB plushies to ever actually make it to stores, having very little documentation in the form of images or videos from the time. However, thanks to the Commonwealth collection, we now have better images of the 4 plushies and also know of samples of Bomb, Stella and the Minion Pig, as well as a sample for an unreleased blue plushie. That's really all I have to say about this set, as I felt it was necessary to include here. Next, we need to talk about the accessorized pig set. The set included Cowboy Pig, Chef Pig, Postman Pig and Construction Hat Pig, as well as an unreleased Sombrero King Pig. There are other interesting tidbits of trivia to discuss in regards to the set, but I'll bring those up some other time. First, I want to discuss another group of plushies that seem like they would have been made at roughly the same time as the accessorized pig set, the accessorized birds. These plushies weren't actually developed as one set, but they're all related to the accessorized pigs in some way. First, there's Chef Red. This plushie was unveiled in the aforementioned Black Friday video Maximus made, and looks very basic, in a good way, being a normal red plush wearing Chef Pig's hat. Chef Red wasn't the only bird to be given a hat straight from the accessorized pig set, however. There was also the Ham High set. The set featured the 5 main birds wearing the exact same hat as Cowboy Pig and would have very obviously been a tie-in with the Ham High episode from Angry Birds Classic. This set, as well as Chef Red, were likely cancelled due to Commonwealth not believing they'd sell well, similar to Star Wars Wave 3. There is another plushie that was made as a tie-in to an AB Classic episode, however, being Shockwave Bomb from the Short Fuse episode. The plushie was shown off alongside Chef Red in the Black Friday video and was considered by many to be the greatest discovery of the whole video. We don't actually know much about this plushie, except that it was probably cancelled due to Angry Birds not selling as many plushies as it used to at this point, being late 2014. Had it been released, it would have been one of, if not the last plushies Commonwealth would have ever made for AB in the classic style. At the very least, it's still nice to see it become public knowledge after all this time instead of being lost to time in a warehouse for the foreseeable future. So, before I end the video, remember Chef Red from the last segment? Remember how he was available on eBay as part of the Commonwealth collection? Well, back in February, when I began working on this video, I decided to make a little purchase, and there are only 12 Chef Red plushies in existence and I'm now proud to say I own one of them. If you follow me on Twitter, you probably know this by now, but still. Is this really worth 200 bucks? Well, that's up to you. But look at him. Isn't he great? Just look at him. Look at Considering the fact I got Chef Red 6 months ago as of writing this, I would have hoped to get this video out a lot earlier than it has. Sadly, an issue with file corruption back in May made me almost lose all of this video's files and I was only able to recover them about a week before this video was released. But nonetheless, would you guys like to see a part 2 to this? Did I get anything wrong that I could correct in a hypothetical part 2? Let me know in the comments, and please make sure to like and subscribe. My channel's been kinda dormant for the last year, so doing so would really help. Anyways, that's all for now. See you next time.